working on fair trade, it's, as we talked about at the beginning, it's very important to do a lot of listening. I think it's easy to come in thinking you have the answers, and it's much more effective to come in or at each stage of effective work in fair trade, especially in Madagascar or developing countries, to assume you don't have the answers.
There's also a lot of potential. You can't help but go there and just get excited about all the potential there is for business, especially for investment. Infrastructure needs are so great there. Airports, roads, water treatment, you name it, housing, and especially opportunity for people. This people-to-people exchange was really life-changing for me.
Iran at one point was a fairly prosperous country. And so one would see that, like a kind of a phoenix phenomenon of rising from the ashes, of Iran restoring some of its economic growth as it's once again integrated into the global community.
IU is working right now on trying to expand that partnership to bring it to the Bloomington campus and move it into the humanities, the social sciences, to involve the Kelly School, SPIA, and other educational units, so that there can be cultural and intellectual exchanges both going to Iran and coming from Iran.
I think one thing that I would like to mention and point out and make people conscientious of is that going to a country like this, it's very important, going anywhere in the world, really to any country, if you're looking to really support the local economy, it's important to think about where you're actually spending your money.
In the past 30 years, have tried all kinds of different things, including giving things away, partially charity and partially business. The thing that I found to be most useful and most sustainable is enterprise and creating new markets. So that's what I'm focusing on now.
Gender equality issues are really just equality issues. And the more that we are conscious of making sure that everybody is treated equally, that everybody has an equal opportunity for success, we're making progress.
I have a pretty simple view on what an organization's role is. If there's a way, especially to have your core company values that clearly align with an organization that can make a difference, not only is it something you should do, but we are obligated to do that as leaders in our community.
We used all three of our backgrounds, and then we used that knowledge to just further the business as well. And then we used, I think it was more of just having fun. We started a product from start to finish. We made the soap, and then essentially we hand cut each bar, and we also package it ourselves. It's
incredible how much foreign investment has gone into the country despite all the turmoil and difficulties. It's not the question of, a lack of investment, lack of interest in investment. It's what you're investing in.
I think our young generation, especially the students, have seen over the last more than 25 years, I have prepared thousands and thousands of students. And they are basically different from our generation. They're more proactive and more initiative driven, and definitely they are more onto innovation.
I had a great fortune to come to the United States to study and had a really great run in terms of my career and my business, but always thinking back to the part of the world I had grown up in. And as I met more and more women in those markets, they kept telling me that they didn't have access to culturally relevant career advice.
There already is actually considerable trade. The embargo isn't a complete embargo, it's a selective embargo. And it's a one-way embargo. Americans can't buy anything from Cuba, but Cubans can buy American farm goods, and something like $300 million in American farm goods are sold right now, every year in Cuba. So that's going to be the leading sector.
They don't want to see outside companies come in and destroying what they value. At the same time, I think the Cuban people want to have change, and they understand that that change is going to come in with political, diplomatic, and economic relations with the United States, and I think they welcome that.
In these failures, in each moment, there is some learning happening, and I think it's important not to view these failures as just an ultimate end to a passion project. It's just a small setback, and you take that 8-month process where you're working towards something, and you now can do it within 4 months or 5 months. You keep getting better and better at the process.
And I started a process in 2008 where the United States realized strategically we should play a role in regional trade agreements.
But I think at the end of the day, to really solve problems is what any organization is meant for.
This election, I think, brings two things. So one is the people hope, desire to cast their vote and to express their vote freely. So that is one thing. And the second thing is the whether these results will be realized and whether the transition will be smooth from one government to the next.
The Cuban workforce can be used for many things, and they can handle all kinds of different jobs.
The thing that they're more concerned about is workforce development. I mean, things that aren't necessarily next year, but the fact that we have difficulties in terms of finding good people that, they'll say, all I want is somebody that'll show up on time and will pass the drug test. I'll train them, but they need to have a decent work ethic.
In Myanmar, it has been emerging market in the region with a lot of market opportunities. So we are expecting that our country economy will be changed and improved after 2016 and beyond, where there is an increase in foreign direct investment, increase in local business transaction and business development, and where we can utilize our human capital more efficiently.
The culture of entrepreneurship, the desire to improve their economies, to try to find a better way to make a living in the region has significantly increased. There's a lot of passion to start your own businesses.
And I think what we observe in Europe, and that's the most disappointing point, is the high unemployment of the youth. In most of the European countries, the youth unemployment exceeds 20–25%. And that's too much. This is like a lost generation. And I think this is one of the most important things that politics have to do to give the youth, a future.
I think learning the language is the first step to learn and to have a cross-cultural understanding. So when you understand each other, then as the world can become a better place to live.
It involves encouragement and passion, and not assuming that everyone is the same.
To me, it's globalization has been this idea that, we're going to benefit all these people by giving them jobs, but what's a job worth if it's not really going to help somebody reach their full potential, is how I see it.
Zika, again, should be able to have the same theoretical impact were it to have spread as far as dengue. But given that it hasn't spread as far, at the moment, I would be very shocked if it had that economic impact. Over the life course of Zika, until we're able to do something about it, on the other hand, I could imagine it having the same sort of numbers of people infected, numbers of people affected as well.
The other thing we really try to do is, beyond that engagement issue, we really try to become a catalyst for community development. So we just facilitate the project, but it's the parents who gather materials, it's the parents who build the playground, and it's the parents who maintain it after we've left.
Treating people as individuals and assessing what their skills, their gifts are, and not taking for granted that individuals need to fit into pre-existing expectations.
To people who are looking, to people with disabilities who are looking for employment, looking to improve their employment, I say go, because if you don't, the answer is an automatic no. Okay? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Okay? And to employers, I say look at all of the resources that are out there, whether we're talking the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, whether we're talking about the Job Accommodation Network, whether we're talking about the ADA Steering Committee for the state of Indiana, which I happen to be on, ADA Indiana.
Russia is a highly educated country and has the traditions going back many, many years, certainly through the Soviet period, of doing really cutting edge research.
If you want to go into business for yourself, don't do it.
This is the best way to actually reduce wastage in Iraq by converting electrical supplying and electrical distribution to privatization. I think the Iraqi government is about to do that.
In many ways, they can try to learn a little bit more about Cuba, like the history, the culture, the traditions, and then after having their first trip, in which they will definitely will meet the people, see the country, they can begin to explore.
I think it's really interesting because it's one thing to start a business, it's another thing to really grow it. And when I look at what you need to do or what I needed to do to actually grow my business, the buzzwords don't really matter at the end of the day. What really matters is practical ways of achieving your goals.
There's a sort of a movement afoot across the country to engage the campus itself as a classroom, as a lab for sustainability research, for solutions-oriented research.
But for the small business, the issue becomes that they are small and they're kind of easy to squash by the bigger players. So if they don't have a mechanism for protecting their assets, in this case it's their intellectual property, and they haven't done so properly, then the big guy is going to come in and just basically take their stuff and run with it, and they're out of luck.